Hello and welcome to a new episode on What Does This Data Say? I'm Ajay Prakash. The topic of today's episode is India's dilemma, Taliban or not? A question that is as symbolic as it is strategic. Because this week, the Afghan Foreign Minister, a representative of the Taliban regime, was in Delhi. And suddenly, India faces a very awkward dilemma. Should the Taliban flag, that stark white banner with the Islamic creed, be displayed at official meetings in the capital of the world's largest democracy? It sounds trivial, a flag on the table, but that small piece of cloth carries 2 decades of memories, politics, and moral conflict. So let's start with the scene. The Taliban regime, calling itself the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, has been in power since August 2021. No major democracy has officially recognized it so far, while India still hasn't formally recognized Afghanistan, though it continues to engage with them. In 2022, India established a Technical Support Unit or a TSU in Kabul to coordinate aid, signaling de facto engagement without recognition. Russia has become the first country to formally recognize the Taliban government in Afghanistan. This decision marks a major milestone for the Taliban almost 4 years after they swept into Kabul and took over power. Afghanistan remains a country where still women can't go to schools or universities, music is banned, public executions are back. And yet, there they are sending ministers abroad, and India is hosting one such minister. So when the Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi walks into Hyderabad House, the question for India's protocol team is, do we put this flag on the table or do we just pretend Afghanistan has no flag at all? Diplomacy is often about optics, and this is one of those moments where optics carry meaning far beyond symbolism. To understand why India is hesitant, we need to go back to December 1999. Indian Airlines flight IC-814 Kathmandu to Delhi was hijacked midair by 5 armed men. The aircraft was forced to land in Kandahar, Afghanistan, then under Taliban control. For 7 days, 175 passengers were held hostage in freezing desert conditions. The Taliban, officially neutral, surrounded the plane with their militia, ensuring no rescue attempt. India's negotiators had little choice. Finally, on December 31, 1999, India agreed to release 3 jailed terrorists: Maulana Masood Azhar, Ahmad Omar Saeed Sheikh, and Mushtaq Ahmad Zargar. The passengers came home, but Masood Azhar went on to form the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the group behind the 2001 Parliament attack and the 2019 Pulwama attack. For many Indians, Kandahar is not just a place, it's a scar, and that scar still shapes India's view of the Taliban. Fast forward to August 2021. The US pulls out of Afghanistan after 20 years. Ashraf Ghani flees, and the Taliban, armed with American weapons, walk into Kabul. Within days, the world's TV channels show fighters sitting on presidential chairs holding press conferences. For India, it was deja vu, but with a twist. India had invested over $3 billion in Afghanistan since 2001: roads, schools, dams, and even the parliament building. And suddenly, all that goodwill was under a regime it never wanted to recognize. Initially, India shut its embassy and evacuated its diplomats, but within months, it reopened a technical mission in Kabul, quietly without formal recognition. India sent 50,000 tons of wheat, medicine, and COVID vaccine. The message was clear: we will help Afghanistanis, but not the Taliban. But in reality, there was no helping Afghans without dealing with the Taliban. Every discussion on Afghanistan eventually lands in Islamabad. For decades, Pakistan's ISI had been Taliban's mentor, trainer, and protector. In 1990s, Taliban regime survived on Pakistani support. Even the IC-814 hijackers were believed to have ISI links. So when the Taliban returned in 2021, Pakistan celebrated or thought it would, but things got complicated. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan (TTP), ideological cousins of the Afghan Taliban, started attacking Pakistani forces, and suddenly the mentor became the victim. This opened a small diplomatic window for India. Delhi began back channel outreach to select Taliban factions not aligned with Pakistan. The aim was to reduce Pakistan's monopoly over Kabul. But standing next to Taliban ministers, or even worse, their flag, risks alienating India's global partners and its domestic audience. It's the eternal Indian paradox: ideology versus real politics. While India hesitated, others moved fast. China signed a strategic mining deal with Afghanistan in 2023. Russia hosted Taliban delegations in Moscow. Iran kept its embassy open throughout, and even Qatar and Turkey quietly normalized engagements. India's strategic community began asking, if everyone else is talking to Kabul, can India afford silence? Because Afghanistan is not just ideology, it's geography. It connects India to Central Asia, Iran, and Russia through the Chabahar port and the International North South Transport Corridor, or INSTC. If India stays out, China and Pakistan will fill the vacuum. So Delhi is now playing a delicate game. Engage the Taliban just enough to protect interests, but not enough to legitimize the regime. The Taliban bans girls from school, India builds schools. The Taliban execute dissenters, India calls itself the mother of democracy. How do you bridge that gap? Every time an Indian diplomat shakes hands with a Taliban minister, critics ask, are we compromising our values? But India's foreign policy has always been guided by strategic pragmatism, not emotional idealism. Remember that during the Cold War, India maintained ties with both the Soviet Union and the United States. It talked to Iran, Israel at the same time, so why not talk to the Taliban without recognition? It's the same logic that drives India's engagement with Myanmar Junta or Russia under sanctions. You don't have to like your neighbors to talk to them. Now back to the question that started it all: the flag. The Taliban's flag bears the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. It's also the flag used by suicide bombers and militants during insurgency. Displaying it in Delhi, even as a diplomatic courtesy, would be seen by many as legitimizing extremism. So, what does India do? Here are the options. We display no flag at all, neutral setting, focusing on technical talks. Second, use the previous Afghan tricolor, but that will be rejected outright by the Taliban. And third, host under the international framework like SCO or the United Nations, where symbolism is softened. Most likely, India is going to choose the first. Talk without a flag, engage without recognition. As one senior diplomat once said, India's diplomacy is like a tabla. It sounds best when you strike it softly. Every time the Taliban's name appears in Indian headlines, another name quietly echoes. That is of Masood Azhar. Freed in Kandahar, he became the architect of anti-India terror for 2 decades. His group, Jaish-e-Mohammed, claimed responsibility for the Pulwama attack in 2019, which triggered the Balakot airstrikes. Pakistan still can't find him. The Taliban say they have no information, and India continues to pursue justice through the United Nations sanctions regime. So when Indian officials sit across Taliban table today, the question isn't just about recognition, it's about memory. Can a nation forget Kandahar for the sake of Kabul? Let's look at how different voices see it. Foreign policy realists say engage or lose influence to China and Pakistan. Human rights activists say no engagement at all until women return to school. Security analysts warn Taliban cannot be trusted, their soil still shelters terror networks. And regional watchers note Taliban itself is fractured between Kandahar hardliners and Kabul pragmatists. Interestingly, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has been rather careful. He calls it pragmatic engagement for the sake of the Afghan people. Not recognition, not endorsement, just presence. So, what next? India could follow the three-track policy: humanitarian engagement, keep aid and education flowing; security coordination, prevent cross-border terror spillover; and regional diplomacy, use forums like SCO, BRICS, or Moscow format to stay in the loop. Recognition, however, will remain off the table unless the Taliban show concrete progress on inclusivity and human rights. But real politics has a way of blurring lines. Tomorrow, if China starts building a highway through Kabul or Pakistan opens trade corridors via the Taliban, India may have no choice but to deal more directly. Recognition is a stamp, engagement is a handshake. India seems content with the handshake for now, but even that carries a risk because once you engage, you start normalizing. The Taliban's foreign minister in Delhi is not just a visitor, he is a test case. If he gets the red carpet, the next step could be a formal invitation. If not, India keeps a moral high ground but risks irrelevance in Kabul. That's the fine line of modern diplomacy between principle and pragmatism. In 1999, India bowed to the Taliban to save 175 lives. In 2025, it might bow again, this time to save its regional interest. The difference? Well, back then we had no choice, today we do, but every choice has a cost. So, should India display the Taliban flag? Maybe not. But should India talk to the Taliban? Probably yes, because silence too has consequences. In diplomacy, refusing to hoist a flag is also a statement, and sometimes that statement is louder than words. If you found this discussion thought provoking, share it and tell us what you think. Should India engage with the Taliban or keep them Taliban? Until next time, I'm signing off. Ajay Prakash here. Stay informed. Thank you for watching.